All right guys, we are putting up some brand new targets on the range today because we're gonna break out the old 50 cal flintlock. I've got a target set up at a 100, 150, and if I can do okay on this 150, I've got one way out at 200 yards. We're gonna be shooting a 50 caliber flintlock rifle with 385 grain Great Plains conical bullets. We're gonna see what kind of groups we can get at each one of these ranges. So way back here at the 200 yard target, you'll see I've got two targets set up. Now the reason I've done this is because 200 yards with a 385 grain hunk of lead out of a flintlock is a long, long way. And I expect basically this much drop. Now with that said, I've never shot this rifle at 200 yards before, so I really don't know what to expect, but judging by the approximately 12-inch drop or so at the 150 yard target, I think that if I aim right here, my group should end up down in this target. So we're gonna go back here, we'll shoot some at 100, we'll shoot some at 150, and then if I can group okay at those distances, we'll stretch it out and see what we can do at 200. These are used targets, but I've taken some of these little stickers and kind of covered up the holes. So we have our 100, 150, and 200 yard targets. So before we get started shooting this thing, I just want to kind of go over some of the stuff that I've got on the table, which is all kind of standard stuff that I would normally have when I come out here to shoot this thing. So of course, I've got my black powder. For my main charge in here, I'm gonna be using 2F. Now, if you're not familiar with what that means, it's basically how coarse or how fine the powder is. So I've got 2F here, I've got 3F here. So the 3F is gonna be a little bit finer, and that is what I'm going to use in the flash pan here. I've also got just a really long range rod, which I'll use quite a bit today. I've got some cotton, just rag, towel, real thin stuff. I'll use this for patches and swabs. I've got a cup of water with a few drops of dish soap in there. I'll explain that here in just a little bit. Got my binoculars for seeing where I hit on these targets, a little powder measure, and then today what I've started doing here just this year is weighing out all of my powder charges, because these little volume measures are pretty accurate, but there can be actually quite a bit of variation in how much powder you get from charge to charge using these things. And so just to try to eliminate as many variables as possible, I am going to be weighing out every single one of my powder charges today. So today I'm going to be shooting these Hornady Great Plains conical bullets. They're 385 grains a piece. These are some giant hunks of lead. They are a hollow point. They've got a hollowed out base, and they fit pretty tightly in your barrel. They've got a little collar around the top right here that's just slightly larger than the rest of the bullet. And when you load this thing into the barrel, those will actually like engage with the lands and grooves in the rifled barrels. So my load today is going to be 100 grains of 2F powder and one of these 385 grain Great Plains conicals over the top of that. And of course, got some earplugs and some eye protection. All right, so this little powder measure starts at 50, and each click is another 10 grains. So 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. So we'll go ahead and fill this up, and then I'll zero out my scale and then fine tune from there. So I'm going to use this shot shell here as a container just to weigh my charges. So just with the volume measure here, that came out at 106 grains. So we'll take, I don't really know how much you know, 6 grains is gonna matter. Probably wouldn't really matter all that much, but you know, it's always good trying to figure things out. Just eliminate as many variables as possible. And so that's what we're doing here. All right, so that's 100.4 grains. Bam. Next, our big old conical hunk of lead. So the main charge is in, tamped down. Now, normally I would have a small little priming horn, which I do not have right now because I left that in South Dakota. It's in the mail on my way back to me. So just gonna take a little bit of powder out of the main can here and put it right in the pan. You don't want a lot of powder, just a little bit. All right, so the way this thing works is I've got a double set trigger. So I'm gonna cock this all the way back. The back trigger makes the front trigger a hair trigger. Now you can fire the weapon just by pulling the front trigger to drop the hammer, but it's a little bit harder pull. And so by first setting the set trigger and then using the front trigger, you've got a very light trigger, which for me anyway, helps with accuracy. So you pull that trigger, this hammer falls forward, the flint strikes the frizzen, creating a spark. Frizzen flies forward, spark flies down into the flash pan, setting off that initial little flash charge. There's a flash hole that goes through the side of the barrel into the main charge, and then boom, off goes the weapon. Let's give it a try. Always put the caps back on your black powder, because these things throw sparks, and the last thing we want is to set off an entire couple pounds of black powder. We'll put some earplugs in. Now I'm gonna shoot a 100-yard group first, because that's where I've got this rifle sighted in. It should be pretty much dead on at 100 yards. So we'll put maybe three rounds in that 100-yard target and just see where we're at. Now, I'm gonna be a little bit of a sissy here and use a little bit of a shoulder pad, because with 100 grains in one of these 385 grain conicals, this thing does pack a little bit of a punch. And for a couple of shots, not that bad, but when you're sitting out here on the range and putting 20, 30, 40 shots downrange, it'll catch up with you. Set trigger. Ooh, that one was a bit of a slow burn. That was way slower. I wonder if it's because I'm using that 3F in my pan instead of 4F. That was terribly slow. I know I flinched on that one. There I am talking about how quick these things are. Oh yeah. Shot low. About 6 inches low on that one. Still would have been a dead elk, but I'm not happy with that. So I'm just gonna take one of these cotton patches, put it in that water that's just got a little soap in it. We're gonna run that up and down the barrel a few times. You don't have to clean it. Just need to get the bulk of that fouling out. You can see how nasty it is. So given that that was a very slow for this rifle ignition, I'm not too disappointed in that hit. Had that been a hunting shot, that still would have been a good kill shot. I mean, I'm only 6 inches off of my mark, but I don't like that. We're gonna have to figure that out. We'll reload this thing, and hopefully on this next one, we'll get a little faster ignition. $102. 100. I like it. So for that first shot, I was using 3F in the pan, which I normally would never do. I just happen to have a can handy. So I'm gonna go into the shop, I'm gonna grab some 4F, which is a super fine powder, and that just helps get down into that flash hole a little bit better, and we'll see what that does. I think that'll make a big difference. The other thing that I didn't do on that last one is I didn't bump that powder charge around very much to get down in that flash hole, so that may have been a contributing factor. That is just about perfect. It's about 2 inches below the center of the orange, which is exactly where I was shooting the other day. So if I can put 3 in that, right in that spot, I'll be totally happy with that. About 2 inches low at 100 yards. So I'm hoping for a 2-inch group at 100 yards. I think I can do it. I would be satisfied with a 3-inch group. Let's see. I'm gonna eventually, I'll get a mold so that I can mold my own bullets. I just haven't got around to it yet. Bam, I love it, man. Right beside the other one. I mean, it's touching. So this is my first shot when I had that slow ignition, and I know on this shot, I know I flinched with that slow ignition. It's hard not to. These two are my follow-up shots when I had a much better, much faster ignition, and they are right exactly where I would expect them to be, just a little bit below the orange here at 100 yards. So I'm gonna load it up again, and hopefully I can put another round right here with these two. If I can do that, that'll be a 1-inch group at 100 yards. Moment of truth. Well, it's not a 1-inch group, but it's pretty doggone good. That's right in the middle of the orange. So, 2.5 inches maybe. We'll go with one more. I want to put one more down there in that target. Oh, dang it, messed up my group. A little bit to the right. Well, I mean, that's still a 3-inch group at 100 yards. Not bad. Not as good as I wanted, but definitely acceptable. All right, so 100 yards, 50 caliber flintlock, 100 grains 2F, and a 385 grain Great Plains conical bullet. This was my first shot. Now on this shot, I know that I flinched. I had a little bit of a delayed ignition, a little bit of a hang fire. And I think that was for 2 reasons. Number one is I was using 3F in my pan, 3F powder, which is a little bit coarser. But probably the big reason is I didn't turn that gun to the side and kind of tap that powder down into the flash hole. And so I think you should be able to see it on the camera, but when I pulled the trigger, you know, it just, you know, it had just that little bit of a delay, and that was just enough for me to kind of tense up and flinch a little bit, which threw my shot off. I'm gonna ignore that one and call this my group, because this is when I started getting things figured out. You know, I moved to a 4F powder, a little bit finer, was careful to tap that down into the flash hole on everyone, and was able to get about a 3-inch group at 100 yards. So I'm happy with that. That's good enough for deer hunting. So one of the biggest challenges of shooting these muzzleloaders like this is the open sights, especially. Just seems like the last couple of years my eyesight has just really started going downhill, and so it's difficult to keep everything in focus, especially this back sight here. All right, so 150 yards, I'm expecting about a 12-inch drop or so, maybe a 10-inch drop from where it's currently shooting. And so I'm gonna need to aim kind of up towards the top side of that target board down there. See if we can't drop it into the black. So the hardest part about this is when I'm aiming above the target, I can't see the target. And so I'm constantly having to move my head up just a little bit to look over this back sight to see the target, and then get back down on the rifle without moving it. I'm mainly just picking my head up just enough to see if I'm aligned left and right. Pretty sure I flinched on that one. Yeah, that's I hit way to the right on that. It's pretty much dead on up and down, but it's about 12 inches to the right. That's not so good. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. I'm gonna try aiming a little bit differently. Try to put the dovetail of my rear sight down at the base of my front sight. That way I can put my bead right on my target at 150. Let's see if that works. See what kind of group we can get. I have no idea where that went. That's not even on the paper. Okay, let's try that again. All right, so regrouping. I went down there and I put a piece of white, like styrofoam, right above the target on the top edge of that, just to give me something to fix my sights on, because when I raise my barrel up enough to compensate for that drop at that distance, my barrel is covering up the target, and so I'm just kind of guessing where to hold on that. And so by having that piece of styrofoam up there, that's going to help a bit. Big old cloud of smoke. Let's see what we got. Holy smokes! Right in the orange. See if we can do that again. Can't base anything on one shot. That third shot at 150, I had that reference marker up top and it went right in the orange. So we'll see if we can put another one right in there with that one. Let's see. Hot dog. Oh, it's about 4 inches low, 4 or 5 inches low and left of the orange. Pretty dang good for 150, for me anyway. Maybe I'm sure there's lots of other folks out there that could put this in orange every time. All right, we're gonna call this shot number 3 at 150, even though it's shot number 5. Shot number 3 after I started getting things figured out. Let's see. Well, I pretty much guarantee that ain't on the paper, because I just didn't put a bullet in there. I just fired a blank. Gosh dang it. Good grief. It's like, man, that didn't kick at all. So I was out hunting with this flintlock one time in the late season, whitetail season up here in North Idaho, and had a snowstorm come in. It was heavy, wet snow, and I jumped a little buck up and he ran off about 50 yards and stood there facing directly away from me, and stood there and stood there and stood there for what felt like an hour, but it was probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes. But I had this gun cocked and I was ready to pull the trigger, but he would never turn. And the whole time it's just dumping snow onto my rifle. And he finally turned, and I dropped the hammer and it just went click. Cocked it again, click. And I pulled the trigger 5 times on that deer before it finally went off. I think I actually had to get the powder out of my pan and dry it off and reprime it. And the whole time he just stood there. Never seen that before. He just didn't want to move in that storm. All right, let's see if we can actually put a bullet in it this time and get one downrange. That felt better. Freaking bingo. I like that. All right, one more. was a bit of a delay there. Still felt like a good shot. I don't think I flinched. Not great, but a little high and left. Well, I'm going to call that a, oh, what would that be? Probably a 8-inch group at 150. Not terrible, given that I had a little bit of a hang fire there. I need to run some solvent through this thing, clean that flash hole out a little bit. So this right here was my first shot. This one, I know I had a little bit of a delayed ignition, a little bit of a hang fire, and that's just because I didn't clean out the flash hole good enough. You know, with these flintlocks, the flash hole with a cap lock, it's the nipple. You just kind of gotta, you know, as you shoot these things, they get a little bit gummed up, and if you don't clean them out good, it just takes a while for that ignition to get through there and light off the main charge. I know that I flinched on this one, and so I'm not worried about this one. I'm not surprised that this is just kind of way off to the side. Number 2 was down here. Now, I originally had thought I had missed the entire piece of paper because I just didn't see it because it was right here on the corner or right here on the edge. Now with this one, I was just trying a different type of aiming. I actually had the dovetail of my rear sight down at the base. I had it lined up with the base of my front sight, and then I had the top of the blade of the front sight on the orange here. It didn't work out so good. Still hit way low down here. When I put this piece of styrofoam up here to give me some reference left and right, I was actually putting my my sights right here. I was kind of aiming right at the top edge of this, and so, you know, we're getting a 12 to 16 inch drop at 150 yards, which isn't surprising with a 385 grain bullet. This is what I'm going to call my group at 150. So that's probably an 8-inch group at 150, which I think I can do better with that with a little bit of practice, but at this point I'm pretty satisfied with that. I've got a target set up at 200 yards, so we're going to stretch it out and just see what it does. I've never shot this gun at 200, so I'm not sure what it's going to do. I'm going to start with 3 shots at 200 yards. If I can keep all of those in the black, I'll be happy with that. All right, first shot, 200 yards. I really don't know what to expect, but if I were to guess, I would say 24-inch, 28-inch drop, maybe. But let's find out. Really close to the orange on that bottom target, if that's what I'm looking at. It's hard to tell from this distance, but I think that's pretty doggone spot on. Let's try that again. I can't tell. I'll put one more in there and then. So that second shot, I couldn't really tell where I hit. I can't see it with the binoculars, so it may be low or it may be in the brown paper somewhere, but I'll have to run down there. I'm gonna put one more shot down towards that 200-yard target and just go down there and see where we hit. That one was singing. That's another good hit right there. That's, they're both in the 6-inch circle. Man, if that second shot's in the red and I just can't see it, that'd be awesome. Let's go down there and take a look. All right, 200 yards with the flintlock, and they're all in the black. I'm happy with that. It could be a tighter group, I guess, but for 200 yards, I've never shot that far with this rifle. I was aiming here, and so that's a 16, that's about a 24-inch drop or so, average, I would say. My first shot, the second shot I couldn't see because it was just down here, just below this flap of paper, just right in the bottom of the black. And then my third shot right here. So that's pretty doggone good. I seriously doubt I'm gonna be shooting at an elk at 200 yards with a 24-inch drop, but it's just fun just to come out here and see what kind of accuracy I can get at these longer ranges. So that's gonna wrap it up for the conicals. I'm gonna go ahead and put some patched round balls through this thing and see if I can match that accuracy. I don't know, we'll see. Good as new. So I've got some lead balls here. We're gonna go ahead and load this thing up with some patched round balls and see what kind of accuracy I can get. I'm gonna start shooting at the 100, and if I can hold a fairly tight pattern there, we might move out to the 150 and maybe even the 200. But in the past, I've never been able to get as good accuracy from the patched round balls as I have been from the conicals. I know there's a lot of different things you can do, you know, with the round balls as far as patch thickness, and I think you can even get different diameter balls. Although I've never really played with that much, but I do like the idea of shooting and hunting with patch round balls because it's just more, you know, it's a more traditional projectile from these weapons. Just changed from a 385 grain conical to a 180 grain patched round ball. So I would guess it's going to shoot a little higher. We'll see. Man, there's a huge difference in the kick that you get from that 180 grain round ball versus that 380 on that conical. I didn't even hit the black on that 100-yard target. I think I'm shooting way higher. And that's still not showing up. That's pretty much it. That's a whole pound of powder that I've burned so far, getting ready for this season. So these patches are a little bit too big, so I'm just going to kind of trim. I don't know if that's contributing to the lack of accuracy or not, but we'll just trim it off to be safe. So I've shot twice, and I got to looking at the target, and one of them is in the very bottom left. The other one is not even on the paper, so I'm not, the problem is I don't know which shot is in the bottom left. Is it the first one or the second one? But I am so far not impressed with the accuracy I'm getting off of these round balls. This is about what I expect. I mean, this is poorer than I expected, way poorer. I would have expected a little better than this, but Again, I'm going to the bottom of the black. Well, that one's actually a pretty good hit. That's a real good hit. Got to hit somewhere. Well, that's 2 good hits. Now that I'm trimming the patches, maybe that was my problem. All right, so I've shot 4 patch round balls. The first 2, I don't know. I've got one here and the other one's not even on the paper. I started trimming the excess off my patches, and this is the 2 shots after that. So I don't know, maybe I just got lucky and got 2 good hits here. We're gonna put a 3rd one in here and hopefully it's somewhere right in this area. But if it's off, maybe it's just, you know, something random. I don't know if this was the first or the second shot, but the patches that I was using, they're just a little bit too big and they're kind of wrapping over the top of the ball. So maybe that was kind of throwing them off a little bit, making them spin funny. But anyway, we'll put another one in here and hopefully it's right in this area. That's not bad right there. So 4 inches, 4-inch group. Maybe it was the that just a little bit of extra patch hanging over the ball that was throwing it off, but it was throwing it way off, like way off. All right, so 100-yard patch round balls. This was my first shot. This one was one where I just left the whole patch. It was a little bit, I think the patch was just a little bit too big and kind of wrapped around the ball and just threw it off. Once I started trimming the patches, I started getting a better group. That's probably 3.5, 4 inches between those 2 right there. I think this is my first, second, third, and 4th shot. I'm happy with this. Let's see what it'll do at 150. I think these patches I bought for my Fowler, it's a 62 20 gauge or a 62 caliber. So that's probably why they're a bit big. I've had them for a while. Not sure where they came from actually. My shooting range here is pointed almost directly west, and it's getting towards the afternoon, so that sun gets kind of low and makes it a bit of a challenge to see the targets sometimes. Hopefully we'll have a cloud here in a minute. I can't even see the damn target. If I just be guessing. I can kind of see it, but yeah, I'd be guessing. .150 patched round ball, 100 grains, 2F. What do you think? I do not see a hole in the target. Yeah, I don't know where those things are hitting. Let's go see. So I've got one right dead center. I've got one way down here, and then this one was already here. I don't know where my third shot went, or I don't know. It was shooting at 100 yards. I mean, I was good. I had 4-inch group at 100 yards. And then this, I don't know what's going on here. Maybe I'm just getting tired. I know that I can just kind of work with it and figure out something that's going to shoot good, you know, with patched round balls. May have to get a little thicker patch or something, I don't know, maybe back off on the powder. But I was feeling good about the 100-yard group, you know, 4-inch group, 8 inches high. And that's just the difference in the projectile weight, you know, 180 versus 380. But I don't, with this, I don't know what's going on here. I don't know why there's such a massive difference between 100 and 150. You know, one perfect, one way down here, and then the other one, I don't know where it didn't even hit the paper. To be continued, I reckon. Well, I've been out here all day long, and I'm not sure how many shots I put down range, but it was quite a few. Especially having to clean this thing and swab it and load and all that stuff between every single shot. But anyway, got some things figured out. Shooting dead on with the conicals at 100 yards. Got about a 12-inch drop, 12 to 16-inch drop at 150, and then 200. I'm shooting 24 inches of drop at 200 with those conicals. Not that I'm going to shoot at an elk at 200 yards. I mean, that's a long shot. Probably wouldn't even shoot it at 150. But just out here, you know, just seeing what I can do, seeing what I can group at these different distances. I would like to get to the point where I would feel comfortable hunting with the patch round balls. Probably not going to happen this year. Probably just stick with the conicals, just because that's what I've been shooting and that's what I'm most comfortable with. But more shooting to come. Like I said, I've got 2 really cool backcountry hunts coming up. We're going to do our late season muzzleloader cow elk hunt again this year, and then I've got another kind of a cool hunt that I'm not gonna tell you about quite yet, but you'll find out soon enough. But anyway, hope you enjoyed it and learned something. I know I sure did. We'll see you on the next one. Now I got to go clean this thing. Takes like 4 hours. Not really, not that long. Does take a long time though.